So, hello everyone, and welcome to our session of SAS of PG1, where we'll be continuing our lesson number 2, which is accessing data. So, in this chapter, we are going to go ahead with three topics: understanding SAS data, accessing SAS data through libraries, and we'll see how one can import data into SAS. So before moving ahead with this chapter, let's revise what we have learned last time with lesson 1. So lesson 1, we have learned what is actually a SAS environment, what is the various interfaces of programming tools of SAS, which is SAS Studio, Enterprise Guide, and SAS windowing application. Then we had also seen that how or what are the various data files we are going to access throughout our data or throughout our training. Then how is the data file segregated sophisticatedly about the course files, right? Then we got introduced about the SAS environment, which consists of three windows: editor, log, and reports. So editor is the window where we write the code. Log is the window where we get the error message, log note message, or even warning message related to our log. Correct? Then we had seen what is a result and a output data window. Then how is a SAS data code saved, or with what extension it is saved? Can you please quickly revise? Can anyone tell me?
Dot
Who?
says
SS.
Absolutely
Yeah,
correct.
dot
So
says.
dot
Yeah,
SS.
I
And
says.
how
Yeah.
is a SAS data set saved externally with what extension, if you remember?
Says dot 7.
Absolutely correct. It's SAS.SAS 7b dat. So that indicates it's a SAS dataset file. Correct? So if you currently view my screen, so in this, if you see in this data folder, so all these are currently externally saved on external drive of your SAS environment in cloud application. And here you, when you open a data file, it looks like this, which is a SAS data set. Externally on the drive, it is saved with this extension .ss7b dat. All right. So this is what we had come across. Okay. So to move ahead, quickly we'll revise what are the SAS steps. Okay, so we had learned SAS programming. So SAS programming, it is telling that it's a sequence of steps. And what these steps comprise of SAS programming? Quickly, anyone?
data keyword.
Data step and a proc step.
Step.
Correct? So this is the SAS programming, which revolves around two steps, which is data step and proc step. So what is the end of the step boundary?
Run.
Run statement. Absolutely. So how is your steps consist, or what are the statements you define in SAS steps?
With semicolon.
It ends with semicolon. So the exact statement you should say is that SAS programming consists of steps, and consists of statements, and every statement begins with an identifying keyword and ends with a semicolon. Correct? Agreed?
Yes.
Yes. Then we had seen the types of program syntax errors. So what are the syntax errors?
Quotation mark enclosed and semicolon.
Missing semicolon,
Invalid
okay,
option.
invalid options, absolutely correct, misspelled keywords,
Unmatched.
and unmatched quotation marks, absolutely correct. Okay, so this is where I'm simply connecting to all my data set by submitting my libname statement. I get this message. All right. Okay, so this was good enough to revise the syntaxes of our programming concepts. So let's begin actually with the introduction of how one can access SAS datasets. And within it, we are going to move with first topic, understanding SAS data. So we know that SAS programming process we are going to follow 5 steps. So the programming which we are going to learn is, and we are going to learn with the help of this 5 programming or data processing steps. This is very common steps throughout any platform or any programming language or any tool. So when a person is working on any data, irrespective of a specific tool, one has to access a data, one has to explore a data, one has to prepare a data for analysis and reporting. Once it is done, he or she might be exporting or submitting it for reporting purpose or whatever. So same task we are going to learn via programming. So the same thing we can do with other tools of SAS also, where you will be using GUI tools in future. Whenever you will be working in your life scenario, you may upgrade later on to higher end modules of SAS tools. So in that case also we are going to do the same thing. So we are going to learn the same thing via programming. Okay. So first part we are going to learn is accessing data. So it's trying to tell you with this diagram that you have some of the SAS data files saved in a specific folder. We are going to write certain steps or certain procedures where you're going to access this data files to generate either a data set, or we call it as a SAS data file, or you can generate a report. So this is where accessing comes in. So let's begin with programming, how you can access a SAS data. We'll write a program, how one can connect to a data files, and we can see how it is creating a data file in a SAS environment. So before moving it, let's understand what is type of data. Okay, so when we say that we have various types of data files in our environment, now if you have observed this as a folder of data, you'll find there are certain data files which are of extension JSON, XLS, .csv, .ss7b dat. So we have certain data files which are of various formats, okay, .dat, correct? So what are these? So these are all the SAS files, or these are SAS files, but these are non-SAS files. Okay, so one with the extension of .sas7b dat is a SAS file. One with an extension of .csv, .xls, .json, .xlsx, or dot even dat. If you have that here, these are all non-SAS files. Okay, sometimes when we are working in a live scenario, being a data analyst, we will have to access this data files into SAS because we work in SAS environment. So we have to have this data files into a SAS structure. Okay, so when we are working on this data files, these data files are termed as standard data or non-standard data files. Okay, so there are types of data: structured data and unstructured data. Fine. So what do you mean by a structured data? So structured data is nothing but a data which has a proper structure with rows and columns is termed as a structured data. All right. Whereas non-structured means there are simple files which have only the data value saved into it. Now, just look into the screen, read some of these points, and I'll show you the example of structured data. All right. So if you look at my screen, this is currently an external drive on my PC. I have some of the files which are Excel. So see, it is Excel. It's telling it's CSV type of file, comma separated values file, Excel worksheets. Okay. Then I have certain files which are SAS data files. I have certain files which are of DAT files. Correct. I have certain files which are of PDF. Okay. So what is this? So these are all SAS files. So when I'm opening a specific file, suppose this is an Excel worksheet. So this opens into Excel in the form of proper structured table, which is termed as rows and columns, correct? So this type of file is a structured, which has proper columns, rows. Here you can interpret certain values, that yes, this is certain name, this may be the gender, this may be its salary, this might be the age, this might be in which age group they fall. Okay, so this is where you interpret, so it's having a proper structure. But there are certain data files where you cannot define in what form they are. So for example, I have this dat file. I open this dat file in a notepad. Okay, so now when I open this data file, do you understand anything from this data? Do you find there is a proper structure for this data?
No.
No, correct? So there are
No.
simple data values. So this type of data file, you term it as non-structured data file. All right, everyone understood? So
Yes.
Yes.
that's what
Yes.
it's telling, that structured data file has a proper structure where you can identify the values which has rows, columns. So many types of table or many types able to be read by SAS. That means, for example, if we have certain data files, we'll see in future how one can read Excel files, CSV files, how one can read DAT files. So these are some of the files which are structured files where they have proper rows and columns, and most of the time the files are in various formats. So this could be SAS files, or you can also have files which are saved into your databases like Oracle, Teradata, Excel, Hadoop, Versa tables, and others. So these are some of these structured files. When we move to unstructured data files, so this includes data but not defined columns, must be imported into SAS. Why? Because they have no proper structure. We need to import and create proper columns so that they are properly structured into SAS environment as a table. Okay, so this type of files could be text file, delimited files, JSON files, web logs, and other files. Okay, so where there are only text values. So those are called as unstructured data. Fine. So what is a SAS table? So when you're working in a SAS environment, we'll be working on a table which is defined as into SAS. Hence, we call it as a SAS table. It's very simple, as we have discussed earlier many times, that SAS table is nothing but which has an extension of .ss7b dat. So when I try to open this table in my SAS Studio, it opens into proper rows and columns. Okay, so this is termed as a SAS table. It is into a SAS environment, hence it is a SAS table. So this is .csv. So as we have explained earlier, so if this is an Excel file, so this CSV or Excel files opens into Excel worksheet. So this is comma separated value. So when I try to open it, it will not open into SAS. Why? Because it's not a SAS file, but it is a .csv file. It opens into Excel file. Are you getting it? So when this type of files which are saved in that specific format, they open into specific software itself. Same thing when we are working into SAS environment, our SAS files gets open into SAS environment with proper structure, which is rows and tables or columns. Hence we term it as SAS table. Getting it? So this is what your slide is telling. So it's a structured data which is with an extension of .SAS7b dat, which has proper rows and columns. So when an extension, that means it's a specific file which will open only on SAS environment. Hence it's termed as a SAS table. Agreed? Understood? Everyone?
Yes. Yes, Ashwini.
Great. So when we are defining a SAS table into a SAS environment, we know it consists of rows and columns. But when we work into SAS environment, the terminology for table, rows, and columns, we are not going to use that terminology. So that terminology like table, rows, column, it terms it's a database environment. But our SAS is not a database environment. It's a platform of accessing, analyzing, reporting. So SAS is never used as data warehouse. Hence, the concept for table is termed as SAS dataset. Then the terminology for columns in SAS, we call it as variables, whereas the rows in SAS, we term it as observations. Okay, so make a note that whenever we say it's a SAS data set, it means it's a SAS table. Whenever we say it's observations, that means it's rows. And whenever we say it's variables, it is actually the columns. All right. So what is a SAS table all about? So a SAS table, generally as a table, we know that it consists of rows and columns. But in SAS, we can also move one step ahead and we define that table that it has two portions, a descriptor portion and a data portion. Understand, a table in SAS has two portions, descriptor and a data portion. So what do you mean by a data portion? It's very simple. The word itself, data portion, means it consists of values where you see those data values. Whereas descriptor portion, it indicates that it will describe your table. That is the general information of your table, like what is the name of the data table or SAS data set, when it was created, when it is getting modified, did any updates happen on that table, how many rows, how many columns. Okay, so all that information is termed into descriptor portion. It also describes the columns and types of columns. That is, type of columns means in SAS we have two types of columns, a character column and a numeric column. So it will define whether it's those columns are character type or numeric type. Okay, so that's what it's telling. It will describe the name of the table, number of rows, when it was created, number of columns, or what are the names of the columns, and attributes. Attributes, as I said, is characteristics, that is the name, the type of column, what is the length of that column. Okay, all that is saved as a descriptor portion for every table which we are working. All right, so these are the terminologies as we had already described, that a table in SAS is termed as SAS data set, the columns are termed as variables, and the rows are termed as observations. All right. So required column attributes for SAS table. So when a column is to be created in SAS, or when a specific table consists columns, these are the three main attributes required for that column. Attributes means characteristics. That is the name of that column, type of that column, and the length. Length means what would be the maximum length for that column defined to fit in for its all values. Okay. So these are some of the characteristics for that column. So in SAS, all columns must have name, type, and length. Fine. So when we are describing a column which comes with respect to its name, please make a note. The name of the column should not be more than 32 characters long. Okay, it should be between 1 to 32 characters. It should start with a letter or an underscore. It will continue It should continue with a letter, underscore, or your numbers. Can be uppercase, lowercase, or middle case, or mixed case. Okay. So these are some of the naming concepts for your column. Fine. Moving ahead, answer this question if you have followed the previous slide. Which column names are valid here?
A, E, and F.
So who was answering this?
Me, Monica.
Monica. Okay. Others? Anamika, Jagruti, Padma, Vikram.
Yeah, it's A, E, and F.
Okay. Anamika, can you just tell me if you have followed this slide?
Yes, ma'am. A, E, and F.
Okay. Jagruti agreed?
Yes.
Okay. So why not B, C, and D? It's because it's starting with a number.
Numeric value,
Correct.
number.
Here
Mhm.
it consists a
Have
special
a special
sign,
case.
and here you have a space. So
Yeah.
this B, C, and D is invalid. Okay. So this is valid because it's what it's telling. Month 6 and month 6 in small case are actually the same column name. So you cannot define these two columns are different columns. If the name is having mixed case, it never means it's a different column. It's the same column in SAS. All right. So moving ahead now, let's understand the types of column as its new attribute. So types in SAS are of two types for columns, character and numeric. So why we have types of columns? Because if you have observed this table, you find there are certain columns like name, age, sex, height, weight, birth dates. If you have observed this name column, it has the values for students. So if the values of students are never into numbers, they are alphabetic values, that is the name, correct? So these are the names. Hence, the names of this are our character. So the type of column for name is going to be a character type of column. Same goes for sex. Age is numeric, height is numeric, weight is numeric. So don't come into date currently. We'll describe this date later. But at this point, we say name, age is character, age, height, weight is numeric. So if you have observed when I open this table, at the left hand side, it is also describing the column description. So see this name, it has an icon with a triangle with an A. So same goes with sex. Look at this icon. So this indicates this a character type of column, whereas this indicates with the icon with numbers. These are numeric type of column. So if I click this column here, it is also describing its properties below. So it's telling currently this is the name of my column, its label, its length, and its type. So at this point, just focus on this part, which is name of the column, length of the column, and type of the column. Okay, so these are the characteristics for this column name, and it's telling its type is character. So its type is character. Correct? So same thing it's telling for column attributes, you have two types of columns in SAS, numeric and character. So this is not compared with your other database softwares like Oracle or Teradata or Hadoop or even Sybase or Microsoft Access, where the columns are defined with various types. Like, of course, if we have only character values, it's termed as character there in databases. Number values are termed as numeric. But if your values are having some integers, those are termed as integer column. If the values consist of date column values, then that is termed a different type, which is called as a date type of column. Okay. So this comes in those databases, but in SAS, the the integers, the numbers are all put together into numeric. Okay, they are not termed separately. And character values, including your alphabets or special signs, all are termed into character. Okay, so this is what it's telling. In SAS, numeric values are nothing but all the digits which are ranging from 0 to 9, including your minus signs, decimal points, and of course scientific notations, that in case any values do not fit into that column with a specific lane or a specific characteristics, it will always save that value into exponential. So hence these are all the examples. So exponential, it shows like this. This is with its minus sign. This is a simple number. So all these values are saved numerically into SAS. Whereas character, it's telling it can save letters, numbers, special signs, or even blanks. All right. So letters, numbers can also be saved as characters, as you all know. Okay. And of course, special signs with the values in it. Okay. With blanks are also as character data values. So how about the question about dates? So did they mention anything about date here? How is date saved into SAS? Any idea?
Numeric.
Month, yeah, numeric.
Why
But
numeric? Like how
oh, it could
numeric?
be month, year, and date. Like it can be like MARCH. So it could be like numeric and character both, I guess.
Okay, okay, good try. Others? Anyone else? How dates could be saved in SAS? Any idea? As we said that we have only two types of data column, character and numeric. And we had described that dates in other databases are saved as date formats, but they have not mentioned anything about dates here. So what do you think about dates? Yes? Any idea? All right. So in SAS, make a note that date is always saved as numeric. Why numeric? So pay attention in this current data file. If you have observed this data set, which is your class birth date, look at the column date. If you see its characteristics, it's showing its numeric. So when I click this, it's telling numeric. Look at this date. What do you think this date is? Can you interpret it? Yes, everyone?
It's the number of days.
Yes, it's in the form of number of days. So why number of days? It's because SAS saves the dates as numbers because it calculates the dates in the number of dates since 1st Jan 1960 as 0 day. Any date post 1st Jan 1960. So if you see this date, it's 1st Jan 1961. It has been saved as 366 days, whereas 1st Jan 1959 is saved as minus 365 days. So it always calculates your date in the form of number of days, which it is saving it or calculating it from 1st Jan 1960 as 0 day. So whatever the day is for our current date, accordingly from 1st Jan 1960, it will calculate those number of days till date and give you as number of days. That is why this date is saved into form of number of days. Understood, everyone?
Okay, yes.
Okay, so it's telling storing dates as numbers makes SAS easy, or it is making the task easy in SAS for calculations. In case it's telling if you want to calculate age, okay, so how you'll calculate the age or age difference. So that is why in SAS, these dates are saved in the form of number of days. All right, everyone.
Yes.
Okay, so Jagruti, when she was telling that it is MMDDYY or it's saved as month, that is the way it is displaying the dates. It's called as format. Are you getting it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is termed as format. Like for example, just pay attention. Do not work on anything. I'm simply writing it as, suppose, so this today is a function which will give me my system current date. Okay. Now just pay attention. This is a data step. I'm creating a data called date1. So it will create a data with one column, which is a date column. So see, this is showing me it's the date in the form of number of days. So whatever is my current SAS system date, it's showing me in the form of number of days. But if I want to interpret this, what I can do is I can have date1, okay, to be created, which will have the value same as date, and I'll apply a format for this date1. What format I may apply? I may apply as DDMMYY 10 dot. So what is this 10 dot and all those? I'll explain later when we are moving ahead. At this point, just understand this. So a new data set will be creating with two columns, date and date1. So it's the same date, but it is interpreted as DD, date, month, and year. And the total width of it is 10, including this slashes. Hence, I have termed it as DDMMYY 10 dot. Now, what is this dot? It describes that this is the format name I'm applying on this column. So what is all this? We'll see it later, but at this point, just see. So this is the number of days and I'm applied a format to display in a readable form. Hence, it's the same date, but it looks to me as number of days, which is when I interpret it by applying a format. This is my original date. Are you getting it, everyone?
Yes, Ashwin.
Everyone here?
Yes, it's clear. Mhm.
Okay, so dates in SAS are saved in the form of number of days. All right. So how about length? So numeric data values are always saved or by default every column in SAS by default saved as 8 bytes. So for numeric it is 8 bytes where it can maximum save 16 significant digits. Okay, so 8 bytes, it's not that one number means 1 byte. No. So it's telling 8 bytes can save nearly 16 digits. Whereas for character data column, the length could be between 1 to 32,767 bytes when one character is equivalent to 1 byte. All right. Okay. So if this is clear, you have an activity. So we are working into SAS Studio. So it's telling expand your files and folders. Double click storm summary.ss7 SAS table to view it. How are missing character and numeric values represented in data? So go ahead, open this and give me the answer.
Ashwini, the meeting will be ending in 3 minutes. So
Yeah, don't worry. I'll do it that. I'll manage it.